Often, what we think people are thinking is often not necessarily the case. I might be thinking about how pissed off I was at how much cheese there was in my wrap, and there was so much cheese that it was actually too much. I would have preferred more salad. But you think I'm thinking, oh gosh, he's so ugly. But no, I'm literally thinking about cheese, perturbed by it, a little bit disturbed and perturbed. And I tell you what, if I was in my 5 years ago Dawn self, I would have probably thought about that for days. Right now, I wouldn't have thought about that at all. I just would have been like, meh, whatever, off we go. Hello. Hi guys, welcome back to my podcast. Today we are talking about how to reduce or overcome rumination, also called intrusive thoughts, overthinking, anxiety thinking. There are so many different ways that you can say this kind of thing. For me, I say it's overthinking, but they all mean the same thing. And I am somebody who has anxiety, as I'm sure you are if you're listening to this, or maybe you're just somebody who has an overactive mind without the diagnosis of anxiety, because that is possible. And that's what we're here about today, is to, well, not just today, twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. Yes, this one is, on a Tuesday, but maybe we'll get into my hectic week a bit later when I talk about my history with overthinking, because this week and last week have been pretty bloody hectic for me, let me tell you. So yeah, we cover mental health topics every Monday and Thursday. Mental health, self-improvement. I'm Dawn, I'm a doctor. Yeah. I think overthinking or intrusive thoughts or rumination, they're all very similar things / the same thing. They can be so all-consuming and just take over your life. I have personally had a lot of issues with overthinking, and I'm just going to call it overthinking, but it means the same thing as rumination or intrusive thoughts. I've had a lot of issues with it, and I'm going to be getting into that a little bit later, because I always think, like, why are you listening to a podcast? Well, you're listening to a podcast to, maybe because you like the format, but to hear people's experiences. And I'm a gal with a lot of mental health experience. So what is overthinking, etc.? It's where you dwell or constantly think about something repetitively. And it's generally not something that's helpful. It's generally the same thing. So if I was thinking like, oh, I'm really worried about money, that, I might constantly be thinking, oh my God, I'm worried about money. Oh my God, money. And it's like constantly going around your head with no real solution. And not always, most of the time, if we're talking about this, it's not helpful. It's just there. It's being a fucking pain in the ass, to be quite frank. And it's causing you more stress. As someone who has probably already got anxiety, because this is a symptom that is very typical of anxious thoughts or anxiety disorder. Overthinking, rumination and intrusive thoughts are very, very common in anxiety. So that's kind of the reason why we overthink. We might also have other mental health conditions, such as depression, or, like I said, anxiety, any of the forms of anxiety. We might have OCD. Name any of the other mental health conditions and it would probably be in there. However, you can have overthinking without necessarily having an mental health diagnosis or a current mental health problem. You might have a diagnosis, but it might not be that you're currently going through having a mental health problem. So what I mean by that is that your mental health is stable. I would say my mental health is stable. However, I have recently had some attacks of overthinking, which we will get into. Like I said, there are also other situations which are not mental health related where you might overthink. For example, should I buy that house or not? Now that's quite a big decision. Fucking massive decision. When should I have a baby? Like, big decisions that actually hold a lot of weight are probably important to be thinking about, and maybe even overthinking. But there comes to a point where you've thought about it too much, and maybe that constant cycle of thinking is not actually helpful for you. It can be used for sort of problem solving, but often in the case of mental health conditions, it is very nonsensical and not helpful. As in, when I say nonsensical, I mean it just doesn't make sense. I don't need to think about how much I'm, whether they looked at me funny or whether I said that word right. I don't need to constantly think about that. It's gone. It doesn't matter. So let's talk about what happened to me over the past few years, but in particular this week. I have been, I think probably my worst time that I was overthinking was when I just started working as a doctor. My mental health was at its worst. I was in my first year as a doctor. I'd just come out of medical school. My mental health was rapidly crashing down into the earth like a fucking meteor. And it was going to hit the earth's core, it couldn't go any deeper. Maybe it was going to come out the other side, I don't know. Maybe that's a metaphor for how my mental health did come out the other side. But it reached fucking magma bottom, not rock bottom. It was bad. I mean, I never got admitted to hospital or anything, but it was bad for me. And it's all relative, isn't it? So I would go into work, and I would say for me it was completely indicative of my mental state at that time. Was I getting enough sleep? Probably not. Was I really depressed? Correct, I was. I was very anxious about almost everything. Pretty much everything. But in particular, the things that caused me the most anxiety were interpersonal relationships and my job. Both of them together were a fucking nightmare. I used to constantly overthink the way I said things, whether I'd said it in the right way, whether I'd given the right body language off. And there was a kind of reason for this. Because I was so depressed, I had gotten some bad feedback. So we are constantly assessed as doctors, in particular in your first year as a doctor. You are very, very watched. So I had gotten some bad feedback that I seemed disinterested. No fucking shit. I literally wanted to die. That's not even an exaggeration. And I was obviously disinterested. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to lie in bed all day and cry. So anyway, I got some bad feedback about that. That was then highlighted, and, I was then severely watched. Not necessarily, looking back on it, maybe it wasn't a bad thing, but I struggled with it at the time because I was constantly thinking about how people were perceiving me. So for me, that was the biggest overthinking reason, was because people were watching me. And I used to constantly think, oh, did I say that right? I'd say I'm just going to go get a coffee. And then I'd be like, okay, should I have offered them a coffee? Should I have waited a bit later? Is this the right time for a coffee? Should we have all gone for coffee together? Have I now distanced myself from the group? Oh, they looked at me funny when they said I was going to go get a coffee. Is this not the right time to be going and getting a coffee? Are they going to think I'm lazy? Do they not think I'm working hard enough? And I'm not fucking joking. These were the thoughts that were going through my head. And it's not necessarily sometimes you do get one particular thought, such as, oh, I shouldn't have said that. That was one in particular, and that is one where it goes round and round and round and round and round, and you go, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, I really shouldn't have said that. And it's the same thought. Whereas the one I described before, where it was loads of different questions, was more of well, they were different questions, weren't they? But ruminating, overthinking a situation. So today I'm going to talk you through, because I am the best I've ever been in terms of my mental health. It's hard to determine really one thing that's sorted my mental health out. It's definitely multifactorial. Therapy, antidepressants, growing up, I think just being older, being more self-assured of myself, and working for years on my mental health, every day on my mental health, recognizing when I'm not so good, recognizing when my anxiety is particularly bad, recognizing automatic negative thoughts. So if you fit into similar camp as me, then set up camp in this podcast, and we're going to go through some loads of different methods of overcoming lots of different problems. And you can also go back and listen to some of my old ones as well. Anyway, I don't need to fucking plug it. You're listening, aren't you? So that was my history as a doctor, and I worked on my mental health for a very, very, very long time, because now that was 5 years ago. It didn't take me 5 years to get better. I would say it took me maybe about a year to get like from severely bad to like pretty good. So, but the reason why I talk about overthinking today, despite not regularly overthinking things, is that over the last week I have had some episodes of overthinking, and one of them hit me quite hard because it was a couple of days ago now. I was at what should we call it? An acting session, and somebody said something to me, and it got in my head, and I thought about it over and over and over again. And I tell you what, if I was in my 5 years ago Dawn self, I would have probably thought about that for days. Usually, as myself, right now, I wouldn't have thought about that at all. I just would have been like, meh, whatever, off we go. And I wouldn't have thought about it. But this one stuck with me probably for a few hours, which is longer than normal. And for some people that may not sound very long, because you might be me, where I was thinking about it for days and days and days. But trust me, there are ways to get to this situation where it kind of just, it's like water off a duck's back. There is a reason why that is a saying, and a popular one at that, because you want those comments to just fly off of you and it be fine. But there was something in particular about that day that set me off. And this is where I start talking about my last week. My last week, the week that's just gone, because it's the start of the week now, has been hectic, to say the least. I mean, fairly hectic for me. I've been trying to juggle acting sessions, rehearsals for a play that I'm doing, as well as trying to work, run a podcast. I mean, this is a fucking story of my life, right? I am always doing something, but in particular, usually I can balance it quite well because I can just choose my shifts as and when. But this is where it gets trickier, because this week I've been at rehearsals all day, like a whole day of rehearsals. So sometimes 8 hours. One of the days is 12, they are long. So I can't go to work. So I'm trying to think how can I fit work in? So on the weekend, was it the weekend? I don't know. Anyway, it was before the weekend. One of the days I had a day off. So I was like, right, I need to go to work because the bills don't stop coming in, right? So I was like, shit, I need to go to work. So I booked a shift. It finished at midnight. Now, that's fine. Usually I can handle that because I don't need to get up early. However, my rehearsal started at, I think it was 9 or 10. I can't remember now. Maybe be there for 9:30, something like that. Anyway, it was relatively early. I got home probably closer to 1 o'clock by the time I'd walked home and, blah, blah, blah. Then showered and I need to wind down after I get home from work. I can't just go, right, now let's get straight into bed. No, I do a crossword. I know I sound like an old woman. That's because I am. I just love crosswords. And so I do a crossword. I've been really fucking into a Netflix documentary. Oh my god, I can't. I'm obsessed. I didn't even want to come and do this because I am obsessed with this Netflix documentary. It's called Making a Murderer. I've seen it on Netflix for bloody ages and I've gone, look shit. Because I originally thought it was about how a murderer was born and grew up and how that made them into a murderer. And I was like, been there, done that. I know it. Either they're born a psychopath and then they start abusing other children and they start abusing animals and then they start experimenting, right? We've all seen Jeff Dahmer. We've all seen Ted Bundy. Or they are severely abused. So I was like, I know how you make a murderer. Like, I don't need to know that. So I just never watched it. And then I was at work, and one of my colleagues, we were talking about the Lucy Letby case, who is a nurse who supposedly, I don't know, she's been found guilty, but after watching Making a Murderer, I'm not quite sure. Anyway, she has been found guilty of killing several babies, quite a lot actually, neonatal babies. Anyway, we were talking about that because I was like, I'm surprised nobody's talking about it. But then, because like I work in a hospital, so you kind of think, well, people are going to be talking about this Lucy Letby case, but like nobody was. So I was like, guys, I've been watching it on the news because I just wanted to, see who else was like watching it. Some people were, most people weren't that bothered, to be honest. I don't know, it was kind of weird. But I'm kind of weirdly, I think a lot of people are obsessed with true crime because they don't understand why someone would do that. And I'm one of those people. So I'm kind of like weirdly into it because, not because I'm like, oh yeah, kill those people, I love it. But because I am like, well, why? Why are they doing it? I just need to know why. And sounds weird. How did they do it? But I need to know why. Like, anyway. So then I started talking to one of the other doctors who said, oh, have you watched Making a Murderer on Netflix? And I was like, no, blah, blah, blah. Just said the same reason that I said to you. And she was like, no, you will be obsessed with it. If you like true crime, you will be obsessed with it. Because it's a whole, like, fucking plot twist, blah, blah, blah. It's a conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, fine. So I started watching it, obsessed. So anyway, long story short, I got home from work at 1ish in the morning and obviously turned on fucking Making a Murderer because obsessed. So I didn't go to sleep till probably about 2:30 or 3 in the morning. Then I had to get up and I was like, oh, I really don't want to. But the guy that's running the acting sessions was like, no, Dawn, you have to come to the session. So I was like, okay, fine. I will, if I must, because I missed one of the morning sessions earlier this week. And then, so I got up 7 or something, 8 it was. So I had to be in for 10 because I always get up 2 hours. Anyway, shut up, Dawn. And then, so I got in 10 o'clock, finished at 6. Yes, finished at 6, 10 till 6. We get an hour for lunch, not too bad, not too shabby. Then, so I was supposed to be meeting my friend at 5, thought I finished at 5. The timetable's been a bit of a fucking mare, to be honest. But anyway, I meet my friend, I say, I'm so sorry, you're going to have to come at 6 because it doesn't finish till 6. Thought we were going to go get food. Couldn't get any food because then we had to go straight from my rehearsal. She met me there and we walked for 25 minutes. I did a lot of walking this day. We walked for 25 minutes to a nightclub. I know, at 6 p.m. at night we went to a nightclub. It was my friend's birthday. We were doing it's called Bingo Lingo. I don't know what that means, and I feel like one day I'm going to understand it. I get it that it rhymes, but where does the lingo come from? Anyway, Bingo Lingo, it's like in a nightclub, it's fucking mad. There's men dressed as grannies on the stage in budgie smugglers, getting their ass out, like people, it was pretty crazy. Anyway, we're drinking, so by this point I've had very little sleep, 5 hours sleep, and then I'm drinking. Get home at 1 a.m. or something. Then I had to get up for something else. Did I? Yeah, I'm sure I did. What did I have to do? Did I have to go to acting again? Yes, I think I did. Then I had to go to acting again. Oh, God. So acting was again from 10 o'clock, something like that. 9, I think, until 5. So I've gone from, and I don't sleep at all really when I've been drinking. Like I just, it's so light. My eyes are shut, but this woman is still beating on in my head. Like, ooh, you're awake, you're not sleeping. How many hours are you gonna get to sleep now? Not many. You're gonna be dead tomorrow. Yeah, I know. Anyway. Acting rehearsals aren't like too bad. It's not like I don't drink before I go and work as a doctor because that actually uses quite a lot. Not saying I don't use a lot of brain energy, but I need to think a lot when I work as a doctor. Like my brain, like if it's not working, it's a bad time. I've had times where I've been like, shit, I don't know what's going on. So I made a vow to never drink before I work the next day, which I think is a good way to go. But, I start at 2. It's not like I'm drinking till 2 a.m. and then getting up at 7, like, and I'm still drunk. It's like, yeah, anyway. So the conclusion is, well, how did I even get here? Okay, and on that day, was it on that day? No, I can't remember now. One of the days. But anyway, then I go to a barbecue that evening, stay at my friend's till 11 at night, and then, what day? Then I work the next day. That's it. Oh, fuck. Then I'm acting the next day again. So it's been a pretty hectic few days. That's why you can forgive me for not uploading yesterday, because I got home from acting and I was deado. I was like, no, I can't. All I could do was watch Making a Murderer. Shock. So that's my that's my last few days and my obsession with Making a Murderer. And I've procrastinated all day. Well, not really. I did mow the lawn and I took the dogs for a walk and I picked some blackberries. But I've been watching a lot of Making a Murderer because I'm getting close and I really just want to know what happens. Anyway, fine. So basically, I haven't had much sleep is the fucking crux of that. I talked for 5 minutes about my week, but you didn't need to know. Basically, I'm setting the context. I'm tired. Last night I went to bed at 10. Never happens. In fact, it might have been 9:30. Never happens. Now, the issue is, I go to bed at 9:30. I lie there for ages. The other issue is, Tom comes in. Dawn, we need to do the Tesco shop. Tom, I'm asleep. You fell asleep? Yes, I'm asleep. Don't fucking wake me up to tell me I need to do the Tesco shop. So I got woken up several times. Thank you. And so I still didn't sleep that well. And then I got up again. I went to bed at 9:30 and got up at 1 or 2 in the afternoon. So sorry, not sorry. I had a good time. All right. Anyway, it's been a good day off, to be honest. But I've obviously left this till the last minute. So yeah, anyway, after all of my tiredness, when I'm tired, my anxiety hits a whole new level. It's like, it doesn't exist until I am sleep deprived. And then it's like, hey, remember me? Do you remember me? I'm anxiety. I am here to make your life hell. I just get this feeling in my chest and I know she's with me. Like, oh, and I don't like it. So I do try to sleep, get a good night's sleep. And I do try to look after myself. Another thing happens, when I drink alcohol, I get really bad anxiety. So I know my triggers, all right? And if you don't know yours, you got to figure them out. Sometimes there aren't any, and everything is you're just constantly anxious. But for me, thankfully, I have got 2 in particular, lack of sleep and drinking, that set me off. So I overthink. Yesterday, I think it was. I don't know, I can't remember what day it was. And that is because I was so tired and I'd been drinking, not the day before, but the day before that. 2-day hangovers. When you're nearly 30, they become the new norm. If you know, you know. If you get me, right? So I have lots of reasons to be anxious. Anyway, this one comment just sets me off. And my brain is like, thinking about it, like constantly thinking about it. So here's what I did. I would also say, actually, no, we'll get onto that in a minute. So how do we reduce our anxious thoughts? I think I've split it into daily habits, what to do during an attack, and then major things that maybe I shouldn't call them major, but like general background things that we could be thinking about that might enhance our mental health. Okay? Maybe I'll start with the general things. Number 1, generally treat your underlying mental health condition. This has probably been the best thing for me. I have done an episode on do antidepressants work. Personally, I am on antidepressants and I'll fucking admit it because a lot of people are and it literally doesn't matter. So I'm on them. I've been on them for a long time. I personally find that they help for me. And I feel like as a result, I've been able to get my mental health on the straight and narrow and just controlled better, like not having these like crazy negative thoughts, anxiety attacks, and constantly thinking and ruminating about situations and catastrophizing. I've had it all. Every anxiety symptom you fucking name, I've been there. All right, so we're on this ride together. So generally just treating your depression or other mental health problem, and that could be with antidepressants, or it could just be with therapy. So I have found therapy very useful, and in particular CBT or talking therapies. You don't need to pay someone to do this necessarily. There are probably lots of self-help things online, including my podcast, I suppose. But you can also talk to your friends. You just need to figure out how bad is your mental health problem. If you are a moderate to severe depression, you almost definitely need talking therapy and probably some antidepressants too. But, if you're just hanging about in the mild region, then maybe you don't need antidepressants and you can just sort out or try and reduce your symptoms with only talking therapies. Guys, I'm already thinking about finishing this episode and thinking about going back and watching Making a Murderer again. I'm obsessed. Is it good to be watching murder documentaries? No, but also I think he's innocent, so there's no murder involved. I'm also quite numb to murder because I've watched a lot of murder documentaries and also seen a lot of people die, just not murdered but like in hospital. So death is less of a taboo thing for me now. So there we go. Maybe that will be used in court one day. I often think, right, does anybody else think this? If you're into true crime, sometimes I'm thinking about people's witness statements, and I'm like, whenever I'm walking around and I'm like really into a true crime series, I'm walking around and I'm like, would I remember my alibi? Would I remember evidence? Like, oh, I saw this person, they were wearing this, they looked like this. And I often see people doing things and I'm like, right, Dawn, remember that, because you might be a witness to something. So anyway, that's my weird thing. I haven't done a weird thought in a while. My weird thought was going to be, and I forgot to do it. I said a few episodes ago, I was like, I've got a weird thought today, and then I literally just didn't do it because I forgot. My weird thought was, have you ever seen an X-ray of children's teeth? You probably haven't, and I'm telling you, it's the scariest thing you'll ever witness. Sharks, their teeth come out in rows. Go and look at a child's X-ray before they've got all their teeth out. They've got their baby teeth in, and they've still got and then their adult teeth are coming through. Look at that and tell me that is not the most terrifying thing you've ever seen. It's like something from those nightmares that you get where you have loads of teeth and stuff and then they fall out. Oh god, no thank you. So that's my weird thought, as well as always feeling like I'm in some kind of investigation and being like, right, I need to remember that, because in work I write down everything I do, but when I'm would I remember specifically what I did in August 21st? On August 21st? No, I don't know. What was that, 8 days ago? I'd have to look at my calendar. Otherwise, I have no fucking idea. Thank God for calendars. Anyway, so we go from like the major things. Oh, I haven't talked about like working on yourself. I would say this comes under therapy, but just generally working on yourself, your self-acceptance. And I can go into these in further episodes because obviously that's quite a broad thing to say, isn't it? But I can go into it in their own episode. How to get more self-acceptance. Self-confidence. I've got quite a lot of self-confidence nowadays. I think that is the biggest thing that helps me in life. And gratitude. Being grateful for things. Being grateful for yourself and forgiving yourself for things. So those are like the overarching, let's not call them major, that's a bit dramatic, the overarching themes, right? And then we move on to daily habits. Now, I think these are things you should do every day or practice every so often if you're in a really good place. But if you're sort of a bit ropey, these things might come out of the woodworks and help you. So, for example, one thing that I love to do, not only talk to people, not professionally necessarily, but talk to people on a personal level, just like sharing your problems, like, oh, I'm really struggling with this. And then people will be like, yeah, me too, or yeah, me too right now, or yeah, I have in the past, or yeah, I know someone that's been through that, or here's my advice, or just listening. Like, I'm just a listening ear, someone who, and also just venting, just like getting it off your chest. So journaling is also another way to do that. I should journal every day. Sometimes I get into the habit of doing it, and then often I just don't, because my schedule is not normal. It's all over the place. Some days I'm up at bloody 7, some days I'm up at 1 in the afternoon. And also I will admit, as I have admitted many times, I am obsessed with Making a Murderer right now. So everything's gone out the window. I need to cancel my Netflix subscription. I swear I need to. Stop. I also think on top of just journaling, just writing down all of your thoughts, having a thought journal. And I know that kind of sounds like the same thing, but what I mean is being journaling is you can write down what you did and how you felt about it and be reflective about it. Sometimes you can just write down all the negative things you're thinking, and then you can start challenging them and start going, actually, is that true? And this is something you can do during an anxiety attack as well, or you can also do it on a regular basis. But the thing that I was thinking about yesterday, if it was still bugging me, I could do this today. Or yesterday, ideally. But alas, Stephen Avery takes my heart. So the thought journal is basically challenging your thoughts. Do you have any evidence for your thoughts? Oh, she looked at me funny. Did she? Do you have any actual evidence for that? Did someone else say she looked at you funny? Did someone else say, or did she say, yeah, I didn't like the way you did that, or I didn't like the way you said that? Is there any actual evidence for that? Probably not. It's probably a subjective thing. Reframing the issue. Maybe she was just looking at you funny and she wasn't actually looking at you. She was looking at something that was next to you. Or sometimes people just pull faces and they're not looking at somebody. I regularly, this is kind of it's not an embarrassing thing, but it's a habit of mine. Often I'll just look at people and they'll think I'm about to talk to them. I'm not. Or I'll do an action and they'll think either I'm about to do something, or I'm thinking a particular thing, or I seem angry, or I seem upset. And they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, yes, I was daydreaming or something like that. It's not often what we think people are thinking is often not necessarily the case. I might be thinking about how pissed off I was at how much cheese there was in my wrap. And there was so much cheese that it was actually too much. I would have preferred more salad. But you think I'm thinking, oh gosh, she's so ugly. She really doesn't like my shoes. But no, I'm literally thinking about cheese. And that is a fact. That's an example. Not with the shoes bit, but with the cheese. I had a wrap that had too much cheese in it, and I was kind of perturbed by it. A little bit disturbed and perturbed. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but it sounds like the right word. Hey Siri. Fucking bitch won't listen to me. Hey Siri. Oh, it's a man. What does the word perturbed mean? Feeling anxiety or concerned. Or concern. Unsettled. Yeah, that's the right word. I fucking nailed that one right there. So you can ask, if it's an appropriate situation, you could ask someone, are you okay? That's generally quite a good way to do it. I was going to say what are you thinking? Or do you think my shoes are ugly? But then that's kind of a loaded question. If you just say, are you okay? And then they'll be like, yeah, I was just, and they say, why? And you'd be like, well, you just looked a little bit upset. Were you upset by what I said? And you go, no, I was just thinking about cheese. Easy. Fucking easy peasy. And it doesn't mean you necessarily need to challenge everybody on the way they look at you or stuff like that. But that might help you. If you're with a friend or something, you have that tendency to overthink and think that they're thinking things that they're not thinking. There's a lot of think. You could ask them. Some people might not tell you the truth. Some people might. And you might be like, oh, you did not look like you were thinking about cheese. I wouldn't necessarily get into a habit of trying to reassure yourself by doing that though. But, it might be an interesting experiment to try once or twice. I don't think getting into the habit of asking everybody what they're thinking is necessarily useful. Firstly, people will lie to you. Secondly, because you can't ask everybody what they're thinking. It's just it's not always an appropriate situation. You can't be like, what are you thinking? You know, it might be a private thought. You might be having sex thoughts. Who knows? And also, I just think it gets you into the habit of, I need to know what they're thinking. Otherwise, they are definitely thinking something bad about me. But, so, yeah, do they have any evidence? Are there any other conclusions? Like, are there any other ways I can look at this situation? Should I try and think of another one? Okay, let's say I said something like that I deemed to be, I said it in a bad way. I'm trying to think of something. For example, yeah, I'm not sure your joke was that funny. I don't know, that's probably quite a bad one. Okay, let's just go for it, because otherwise I'll sit here for fucking hours thinking about what example I can use that could be misconstrued in different ways. But to be honest, all I want to do is go and find out what happens to Stephen Avery. That's the God's honest truth right here. So, yeah, I didn't think your joke was that funny. I say that to somebody as an example. Then I'm thinking, oh my God, should I have said that? Are they going to hate me? Oh my God, did I make them upset? When in reality, they might have just completely forgotten about it. They might have taken it as a joke. Yeah, I didn't think your joke was that funny. Like, because there's different ways you can say that, right? You don't need to be like, yeah, your joke wasn't that funny. But you might take it in a different way, like, yeah, I really didn't think your joke was that funny. Or like sarcastically, like, how do I say that sarcastically? OMG. Well, I'm usually the fucking queen at sarcasm. It just feels like now, how do I say it? Yeah, you know that your joke wasn't that funny, right? I don't know if that's sarcastic or not. Yeah, your joke was so funny. Your joke so wasn't funny. Oh, I don't know, now I sound really fucking cringe. Anyway, you get the point, right? There's different ways of saying it, and it can be taken different ways. It might not be that they took it in a different way, in the same way. It might also be that they just fucking didn't hear it. It might be that they literally don't care. It might be that they've forgotten that you said it, because often I've ruminated about things that I've done, and that person, if I bring it up the next day, or I did in the past, they literally don't remember it happening, or they're like, oh, it's fine, yeah, and that was it, done. Like, and you're like, wow, I spent all that time worrying about how I said that specific like word, and whether I intonated it right, and whether I said it like sarcastically or not. And literally, people are thinking about themselves. As a general rule, people don't care. Like, there might be some people that get caught up on it, but it's a very small minority. And I would say most people just get up, move on with their lives, because they've got bills. Bills fucking come through the door. And they've got children, they've got pets. They're like, oh, what am I eating for dinner? Who cares about, unless you say something really bad. I don't know, like, someone's already feeling really insecure about their nose. They're like, oh, I don't really like my nose. I think it's like, I don't like it. And you're like, yeah, your nose is really fucking gross and big. And you like make a comment like that, then that might stick with them. But often, if it's not a targeted comment, if it's just a throwaway comment, like, maybe it's a joke and you're like, did it get received as a joke? Like, people washes probably over them with, the influx of new information and new interactions and new situations and new concerns. There's also, you just have to remember that there's some people you're not going to like, and there's some people that aren't going to like you. And it's just, that's the way it is. That's just the way it is, and it doesn't fucking matter. Like, I don't try and have everybody like me. I'm like, do you know what? I'm just going to be myself, and that's taken a long time to get to. I will do an episode on self-acceptance, but self-acceptance is probably one of the biggest things. Now I generally don't care. I'm like, look, this is me. Obviously, I don't want to be a bitch to people or a dickhead. So, like, do tell me if I'm being that way. But as a general rule, I'm like, this is me, and you can fucking like it or lump it. Is that the phrase? I think so. Okay, so what I did the other day was I tried to distract myself. This one, beautiful, worked perfectly. Because often then you distract yourself with something else, and then you come back and you're like, oh, well, life's gone now, don't even care. I went and a good distraction is often something that is a positive distraction, i.e. exercising, or also just doing something that is enough of a distraction. Like, you don't want to go and sit and, like, for example, if I did a crossword or read a book and my mind was overthinking or ruminating on something, I might not necessarily be able to, like, get myself out of that mind space and concentrate. So I might need to go and like do a run or something, or go for a walk, or something that's a bit more like active, like something that I need to go and physically do and get myself out of the environment. And that's personally just me. Like, I get quite distracted if I'm reading a book and my mind's not in a good headspace. Some people have said schedule time for worry. This isn't a thing that I do, and I don't really get it. Like, how do you go, right, I'm going to schedule 15 minutes. Apparently it's been shown to be effective. I'm going to schedule 15 minutes of sitting down and I'm going to worry. I'm worrying right now. No, I just don't understand it. Maybe I'll have an epiphany later in life and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I've never scheduled my worry sessions. But look, I can barely fucking schedule my own routine and journal and exercise and stuff like that. So for me to schedule in worrying, like, how? Not quite sure how I'm going to make time for that one. So, but maybe give it a try. If you think that's useful for you, give it a go. Let me know. Give it a go and let me know. I think trying to reduce your negative thoughts or ruminating thoughts is not always the best way to do it. If you go, don't think of a pink elephant, all I can think about, some people could think about, is a pink elephant. So if you go, Dawn, you need to stop worrying about that one thing that somebody said, right? Well, if I'm trying to stop myself from doing that, now all I'm thinking is like, oh God, I'm still worrying about it. I've failed. I'm still worrying. Like, I can't stop thinking about it. And that's not a helpful mindset to get into. So go and distract yourself with something else. Do something physically or mentally challenging. You know, not something necessarily hugely passive. I do find exercise, if you can, is super useful. Or like, I went and just did some more acting, which, you know, you have to think about. It's kind of physical. And I mean, I was due to do it anyway, so like, I didn't really have a choice, but that was a good way to get over it. But if I were in, you know, at home, I might go and play some tennis or go and swim or something like that, you know, because you've got to think like, okay, I need to not drown. So that's quite a thoughtful process. I also try to meditate. Now, the whole point of meditating is not to like clear your mind, because you'll have thoughts come in. It's to try and refocus your mind, try and be present, not be thinking about whatever happened 10 minutes ago or 2 hours ago or 10 years ago. So it's about refocusing your mind. Can I try and think about how this table feels? Can I try and think about my breathing? Can I try and think about how my feet feel when they're on the floor? And it's just refocusing rather than completely clearing your mind. Because I think that can be a real challenge, is like, how do I clear my mind? Like, thoughts just keep popping in. And there are some meditations where you can do that. But I guess I'm talking more about mindfulness meditation, where you're thinking about the present rather than trying to completely clear your mind, which I think is especially as an overthinker, is quite a fucking challenge. Let me put it that way. It's quite a feat. Good luck. If you can do that, then you've won at life, in my opinion. To be honest, I think that's it. Also, just give it time. Time is the best healer. We all know that. So, I hope my thoughts and my methods have been useful for you. I hope that my podcast is useful for you. And if it is, come back and listen every Monday and Thursdays, or sometimes Tuesdays if I'm really exhausted in this case. I'm very sorry, I do try to be on schedule, but when nobody's forcing you or paying you, it is kind of hard, and you're like not very organised as a human. But look, I'm here for you. I came back to the good side. So I'm going to go and watch Making a Murderer again. On that note, thanks so much for listening. If you liked it, obviously give it a like if you're on YouTube. And if you're on just listening on the podcast, either on Spotify or something like that, then give it a 5-star rating, please. Share it with your friends or family or anyone who you think it might help, because that's the whole point of it, really. Like, I don't make money from it, so that's the point, is to try and help people. So anyway, it's been a lovely time having a chat with you, and I'm kind of disappointed in myself that all I can think about is Netflix. By the next episode, I'll probably have finished it. I will have finished it. It's not a question. It's not a probably. It's not a might. It's a I will. I aim over the next 2 days to finish it. I have 8 hours left, so can't be that hard. So definitely by next week. Oh wait, no, sorry. Yeah, by next week. I'll let you know on Thursday if you care. Anyway, I'll see you in a few days, or speak to you in a few days, and love ya.